It's my immense delight to introduce the speaker of this keynote session, Mr. Rakesh Tiwari, a people's leader with over 34 years of industrial experience in leadership, operations, and training is what he is. Backed by hands-on experience in training on various aspects of thermal power plant and soft skills are his added advantages. Coming up to his organizational experience, in the year 1984 to 2010 of February, he worked with Torrent Power Limited, Ahmedabad, which was also known as Ahmedabad Electricity Corporation Limited previously. From February 2010 to March 2011, he was working at Vedanta, Jharsuguda, Orissa, with Evonik Services Limited, which at present is known as STEEK. From February 2010 to 31st July 2019, he has been with SR Power Gujarat, holding two different portfolios, being DGM Deputy General Manager Operations from April 2011 to January, and then from January 2011 to 31st July 2019 being the head operations and maintenance for ash handling and coal handling. We are so happy to have such an experienced person from the industry to be the keynote speaker at GWEST 2020. Let me welcome Mr. Rakesh Tiwari to join us along with his presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, I welcome you all to this global webinar on engineering, science and technology, GWEST, organized jointly by Baba Institute of Science and Technology, BITS VIZAG, and the Institute of Engineering Research and Publication, IFERP. I also thank the organizers for GWEST for giving me this opportunity to share my views among such an eminent talent present here. My name is Rakesh Tiwari, and I am a retired power plant professional, having experience of more than 30 years in thermal power plants, mainly in operations. I worked in various power plants across India. Today, here I am going to share my thoughts on the challenging technologies post-COVID era concerning power sector, which is the theme today. This coronavirus pandemic. People have never experienced this type of pandemic and lockdown in their life. And it has left us wondering what the world could look like in future. It is obvious that there will be fundamental changes in how businesses and economies reboot post-pandemic. In Indian power sector also, there will be considerable changes, though it is too early to guess. The long-term impact of the current situation would only become clear with time. Though the power sector is also impacted adversely by this pandemic, the role of electricity in powering our current and future societies is going to remain vital. During this pandemic and after declaration of lockdown, some unprecedented events happened in power sector in India. These events reflect a fairly strong picture of the future power sector scenario. The best and the recent example of this was 9 p.m. 9-minute Diya Jalao on 5th April. For the normal population, it was just a small goodwill gesture towards the COVID warriors. But for power engineers, it was a big problem. We all know that electrical power cannot be stored and consumed later. It has to be consumed when produced and vice versa. The grid is very sensitive to small disturbances. Hence, The generation of electricity has to be matched with the demand of electricity. If this mismatch in demand and generation cross a limit, it can lead to the tripping of the grid and a complete blackout. On 5th April, India planned to face this prospect of a potential grid failure. Imagine if the grid had failed, one of the largest grids in the world with 370 gigawatt of installed capacity, failing and creating a complete blackout in India. Something less drastic actually happened in 2012. The famous blackout of 2012 was the largest power outage in India. It affected more than 620 million people, half the country's population. 300 of trains failed, leaving passengers stranded along thousands of miles of track, from Kashmir in the north to Nagaland on the eastern border with Burma. Traffic lights went out, causing jams in New Delhi, Kolkata, and other cities. Surgical operations were cancelled across India. In hospitals, life-saving equipment were required to operate manually when the backup generators also failed. Electrical crematoriums stopped operating. Some with bodies left half burnt before wood was brought in to stoke the furnaces. In West Bengal, the power cut left hundreds of miners trapped underground for hours when their lifts broke down. And to talk about the monetary loss, it ran into lakhs of crores of rupees. The reason was disturbance in power grid due to overdrawing of power by some states. So the significance of this call of lighting diyas and switching of lights for the power sector was that at 9 p.m. on April 5th, some 12,000 to 13,000 megawatt of power would just drop off the grid and come back within only 9 minutes. And this change, 12,000 to 13,000 megawatt, is estimated from the history. Now, without drastic intervention, such shifts in power could easily spell the collapse of the all India grid. And if such a collapse had indeed occurred, India could have been partially powerless for 24 hours. And it could have taken a week to restore the whole grid. Imagine during a pandemic, what could have happened to healthcare facilities across India. But the electricity grid operators managed this unprecedented achievement of ramp down and built up of electrical load of around 32,000 megawatt. As you can see in the slide, about 32,000 megawatt of load just dropped and came back within that 9-minute window. This load was more than double the estimated one. And this variation was equivalent to power in the entire Pakistan, and that too within a 9-minute window. Though this action, which has not been tried anywhere in the world on such a large scale, was successfully managed, this was termed by experts as a miracle. And it was a miracle, one which cannot be replicated regularly. Humans will and may make mistakes. A solution to these kinds of challenges is automation and smart grids. Now let's see the power sector of India. India's power sector is one of the most diverse in the world, having sources of power generation ranging from conventional sources such as coal, lignite, natural gas, oil, hydro, and nuclear power to viable non-conventional sources such as wind, solar, and agriculture and domestic waste. With such a diverse generation rate, currently India is the third largest producer and third largest consumer of electricity in the world, behind just US and China. And also, India is a net exporter of power. It exports power to neighboring nations like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Bhutan, and Nepal. But its per capita power consumption is very low. It's around 1,122 kilowatt hour as compared to the world average of around 3,200 kilowatt hour. So we are far behind the world average in per capita power consumption, which shows many areas of India do not have power. Indian power sector is a huge and very influential industry, and it is divided into three stages: generation companies, transmission companies, and distribution companies. And companies for all the three stages are independent and consist of government-owned as well as private sector companies. The first stage, that is generation companies, they are responsible for generating power through thermal, hydro, or renewable energy. They consist of state-owned companies such as NTPC Limited, NHPC Limited, or private companies which are also called independent power producers or IPPs, such as Tata Power, Adani Power, SR Power, etc. Or renewable companies such as Renew Power or Greenco. The second stage of power industry is its transmission companies. They are responsible for the management of entire transmission system, grid operations, purchase and bulk supply of power. It consists of mainly state-owned companies such as Power Grid Corporation, which operates the grid. Similarly, each state has a state transmission utility, along with private transmission companies, which are responsible for setting up intrastate transmission projects. Companies like Power System Operation Corporation, along with national, region, and state dispatch centers, work in tandem to ensure grid security and balance. And now the third and the most important stage consists of distribution companies, also called DISCOMs, which are responsible for managing distribution of power to consumers. They purchase power in bulk, sell it in retail to domestic, commercial, or industrial consumers. These largely are state government-owned companies. However, in some cities, such as Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, and Kolkata, private entities own the entire distribution business or part of it. Now, talking about current situation. The primary impact of COVID on the power sector is in terms of its financial condition. The Indian power sector was already financially distressed due to its tariff system. Here in India, the domestic and agricultural consumers are charged very low tariff, even at a rate below the cost of supply due to heavy subsidies. And the industrial and commercial consumers are heavily charged to cross-subsidize it. Hence, with reduced industrial and commercial power demand and increased residential demand because of strict lockdown, the situation is creating revenue gap for distribution companies. Further, the state and central government also cannot fund their subsidies due to their own reduced finances because of delayed revenue or tax collection and diversion of funds for combating COVID-19 or other social reforms or economic stimulus in other critical sectors. Hence, for power sector to survive and support industries and commercial activities, now is the time for restructuring of tariff regimes. Now it has become unavoidable. So the next 2 years will be very crucial for the Indian power sector. Though COVID-19 has opened multiple challenges for power sector, it has also presented an opportunity to rearrange the sector in terms of higher efficiencies and increased utilization of innovation and latest technologies to cut its losses. As the post-COVID scenario, with increased importance on social distancing and working from home or remote, there will be more emphasis on automation, IT solutions, process innovations, customer centricity across the power sector, presenting a unique opportunity to drive the solutions. As discussed earlier, the Diya Jalao incident. It highlights the need for automation in power sector and smart grids. Hence, post-COVID, the power sector would move towards more automation and technology breakthroughs, which will enable power plant or grid operators to confidently handle grid variations while following social distancing or the complete physical absence. Internet of Things driven power automation tools and solutions will allow engineers to timely understand the health and performance of their assets. It will help to prepare demand forecasts and identify potential load imbalances. It will safely automate routine processes and help proactively fix the bugs in the system to prevent network disruptions and reduce losses. Additionally, I see more use of electric two-wheelers post-COVID in society. As with social distancing as new norm, people will hesitate to use public transport once lockdown is lifted. Also, people are becoming more aware about the pollution impacting their immunity to fight against viruses. And after the introduction of BS6 standards for vehicles, which has made petrol two-wheelers costly, people will be attracted towards electric vehicles, which will require more electric storage capacity. So with increased electric vehicles, the storage capacity for electricity is to be increased. Along with higher penetration of renewable energy systems, modern electricity networks will require more flexibility, more storage capability, and smart grid capacity to manage sudden spikes in demand. Hence, post-COVID, we will see lots happening in smart grid and energy storage technologies, and automation will get faster. Now the second transformation, which I see, will be acceleration of transition towards cleaner energies. This is clearly demonstrated by the steps taken by the government of India. Foremost indication is how the sharp dip in electricity demand as a result of strict lockdown was managed. There was a 25% decrease in power demand during phase 1 lockdown as compared with the same period of previous year, which you can see in the graph displayed. But the most important part of this dip in demand was how it was managed. To adjust the power generation according to this reduced demand or consumption, the share of renewable power in the grid was increased and adjustment was made in coal power generation. Hence, the generation of coal power was reduced. The contribution of coal in total power generation was reduced from an average of 72% to 65%. Coal plants were operated at very low PLF in spite of its economic cost. The second development, present initiatives by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy to address India's weakness in the global supply chain for clean energy technologies. India's solar industry is heavily dependent on imports. At present, about 80% solar cells and modules are manufactured in China. So, in a bid to minimize the impact of disruptions in supply chains due to COVID-19, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has started adopting measures to become self-sufficient in the manufacture of renewable energy components. It has asked state and port authorities to identify land sites suitable for renewable energy. It has asked state and port authorities to identify land sites suitable for renewable energy manufacturing and export services hubs. All the states and ports are requested to identify land parcels of 50 to 500 acres for setting up renewable energy manufacturing and export services hubs. It has also extended the implementation timelines for the approved list of models and manufacturers, ALMM. ALMM is the list of models and manufacturers of photovoltaic cells as per BIS standard. After implementation of this list, those included in this list will only be eligible for use in government or government assisted projects. Ministry has extended the timelines for its implementation, so more people can participate in it. This shows India's commitment towards renewable energy, despite of looming recession. Another incidence is in spite of prevailing situation, where all are engaged in fighting coronavirus. Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is pushing its ambitious program of global electricity grid, the One Sun, One World, One Grid program. Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has invited bids to engage consultants for this program. As many of you may be knowing, that this One Sun, One World, One Grid is a concept put forward by India to harness abundant solar power on global scale. Through the International Solar Alliance, which was proposed by India as a founder member, and it is having headquarters in India. 121 countries are members of International Solar Alliance. It is said that International Solar Alliance will be the future OPEC for meeting energy needs of the world. Just like OPEC is famous for oil, this will be for electric energy. In the middle of coronavirus pandemic, Indian government invited leads to roll out the One Sun, One World, One Grid plan, which will be a game changer in the electricity sector. The vision behind One Sun, One World, One Grid mantra is the sun never sets and is a constant at some geographical location globally at any given point of time. So by taking lead in the solar sector and creating a one grid plan, India will be fulfilling the most basic demands of third world countries, that is electricity. This is one of the most ambitious schemes undertaken by any country and is of global significance in terms of sharing economic benefits. The ambitious plan has been taken up under the technical assistance program of the World Bank. And of course, India has not backed from its commitments towards its goal of installing 175 gigawatt of renewable power capacity by 2022, as per its climate change commitments. 86 gigawatt has been installed as on January 2020. These are clear signals that post-COVID-19, clean energy sources will dominate the power sector, and India is moving towards increasing renewable energy sources in its energy mix. Furthermore, post-COVID, the power sector will play a major role in setting the Indian economy in motion. Despite itself facing the brunt of economic slowdown, in the backdrop of the novel coronavirus disease, domestic demand of electricity will pick up soon. The renewed push for Make in India by central government to boost domestic manufacturing as post-pandemic, many companies are planning to shift their manufacturing to India. Recently, in this period of corona pandemic, the Renewable Energy Agency, formerly known as Solar Energy Corporation of India, has awarded a contract to build around 3,000 megawatt of solar panels in India, that is in Rajasthan and Gujarat, under the offering of domestic manufacturing linked solar power projects. Also, as previously discussed, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, in order to promote local manufacturing and export hubs for renewable energy, has sought land sites suitable for renewable energy manufacturing and export services. The Indian government has promised to provide full support to companies planning to expand or set up bases in India for manufacturing and export post-pandemic. There was a news recently that about 1,000 foreign firms were considering shifting production out of China to India and were in touch with several government officials. So this is an opportunity for India to rise up and become a manufacturing hub. Hence, to conclude, Indian power sector post-COVID will see more integration of renewable energy in its electricity mix. It will move towards more automation, and smart grid and energy storage technologies will be accelerated, and it will play a major role in making India a manufacturing hub. And it will contribute to India becoming a manufacturing hub. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, sir. Thank you once again.